Trump has effectively told Mexico, back off of our guns and the Second Amendment. That's what we're going to talk about today as we look at Mexico's latest push to actually enforce gun control in the United States. Yes, they've actually waged a war on the Second Amendment and you and me by effectively trying to dismantle gun companies in the United States. So we're going to talk about what all this means, what Trump has to actually do with this thing altogether, and how he has effectively pretty much stopped Mexico right in its tracks when it comes to their push for gun control on us. You might be surprised, maybe some stuff you don't know in this video, because we're going to talk about how Mexico itself has created an issue, even though they're trying to make it seem like it's you and me and gun manufacturers that are the issue in their own country. It's a wild one. We're going to talk about it, and of course, if you agree or disagree with me, either way, however you feel, make sure you leave that down below. Let's go and jump right in. So Mexico has waged a $10 billion lawsuit against some popular gun manufacturers. Smith & Wesson, Beretta, Glock, Ruger even. And essentially what they're saying is that gun manufacturers have profited from the sale of their firearms, which are then smuggled into Mexico to be used by the cartels. Now this started back in 2021 originally, and the name of the case is Smith & Wesson, Inc. and other brands versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos. I know, my Spanish is impeccable. Thank you. And so essentially it was shot down, but then Mexico was able to bring up in Court of Appeals in the first district, I believe, their case. They were able to basically have it revived. And California and other Democratic-led states have backed this, okay? And that's why you notice that it's all Republicans that are actually bringing this amicus brief and trying to get this case before the Supreme Court. Democrats have long held that gun manufacturers should be responsible anytime a mass tragedy happens or, for the crime that happens in America specifically. So essentially, it's like a backdoor move to say, okay, well, let's see if Mexico can actually get something done that we've been able to not do ourselves. Why is Mexico saying that it causes a problem with their cartels? That, to me, is one of the most interesting parts because the cartels have been active in Mexico since the 70s and it really ramped up. They really ramped up in the 80s. That's when the United States started looking at the Colombian cartels and how they would use these Caribbean pipelines. So they shut those down. And then Mexican cartels picked up on this and they're like, well, hey, we could go from being errand boys for the Colombian cartels to being players. And that's what they did. Now, during this period, you have 70 years of essentially the same party running Mexico. And over those 70 years, the pockets of politicians and police and others have been lined by the cartels. It was only in 2000 when a conservative that actually got elected president in Mexico started to crack down on this, but then that created even more chaos, to be honest with you, because essentially what they would do is they would go after the cartels would then retaliate against politicians and police officers, anybody else that wasn't willing to cooperate. But then you've had other politicians try slightly different approaches, but it's always kind of the same thing. Let's get the military involved that can maybe replace the police officers that have been paid off. And a lot of the times as they're going after high-level officials, I think they got 25 out of 35 in a period of time in the early 2000s, but then that created smaller, more dangerous cartels in the process. So every time they split up one cartel, 2 or 3, maybe more, actually come from that. And that leads us to the current president of Mexico, Andres Lopez, otherwise known as AMLO, allegedly has ties to the cartel. So you see this pattern since 2006, even way before that, where all of these politicians, their pockets are being lined. And to be honest with you, Mexico depends on the cartel because they are the country's largest employer as well. Now, wouldn't it benefit the United States to help the Mexican government to fight off the cartels to stop the influx of certain substances coming across the border? Well, we've given them billions, with a B, billions of dollars since 2006 to help with the cartel problem. What has that done? Well, it's done about the same as what the war on illicit substances have done here in the United States. Basically saying the government sucks at pretty much anything that they get involved with, including trying to stop cartels in another country. Now, the most dangerous cartels to us here in America are the Sinaloa, which was ran by El Chapo for the longest time. He was, of course, extradited to the United States, serving a life sentence. And then there's the Jalisco cartel as well. There's a bunch of them, but these are the two primary ones that that are most concerning to citizens here. As a matter of fact, Jalisco, not only do they operate in like 2/3 of Mexico, but they're also in every single state in the United States. They operate in like 36 other countries as well. So where is Mexico getting those guns from? Well, there's been some reports that say 70% of their guns have been smuggled from the United States into Mexico. There's just one problem with that. When the ATF was asked from 2006 to 2011 to trace guns that Mexican officials had given to them, they found that the majority of the 4,000 guns that were given to ATF were actually from the United States, but that 4,000 guns only accounted for like 12% or so of total guns that had been stopped at port of entry. So essentially, the Mexican government only gave ATF a certain amount of guns, a small percentage of guns, to actually be traced back. And it just so happens that a large percentage of that 4,000 was in the United States. So did Mexican officials already know that these other guns come from Asian countries or Guatemala or any other country where they're known to get their firearms from? The ATF even admitted that their own statistics could be skewed because of the amount of guns that were actually traceable. There's also a report that up to 1/8 of people that join the Mexican army actually desert within a year or two, and they, or a lot of them, will take their weapons with them. Now, I say that because even though that may be a small percentage of the guns that end up in Mexican hands, or cartel hands, I should say, the level of corruption from the top to the bottom is so great that how could you ever believe, first of all, anything that they say to us, also their refusal to give up information and even give us all guns so they could be traced, potentially, just tells me that they are looking to put the blame on somebody other than themselves. By the way, there's one single gun store in Mexico City. That's it in the entire country. So wherever they're getting their guns from, let's say that they do get a portion of them from the United States. That's 100% factual, I would say. They're getting a percentage. I don't think it's 70%. I probably would say it's not even 50%, but whatever. Let's just say the amount of guns that they're getting from the United States, how does that work? Well, they literally get smugglers. They'll get people that can pass a background check, and then those straw purchases, they will give those guns then to the smugglers, and then they will start bringing them in a few at a time into Mexico, of course. And so what does that mean? Well, they're breaking the law. They're willing to break the law. And so another law, of course, wouldn't do anything. And they know this. And so in order to gain some money back on how detrimental the cartel can be to their economy, they want to make gun manufacturers pay for this. They want to put that on somebody. But again, I don't see this holding up at all. And a big part of that is because of Trump. Not only has he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices that have a favorable view, a constitutional view of the Second Amendment. Most of the Supreme Court does. He could appoint 2 more during this term, his second term, right? But also, think about what he's going to do with Mexico. Finishing the wall, I think 100%. He's gonna find a way to do that. He even had Mexico crack down on some of the illegal immigration that was going on by getting 25,000 Mexican Border Patrol agents on their border as well to help out with the problem. Because Trump is so tough on illegal immigration, as he should be, not only will he get people out of our country that shouldn't be here in the first place, but also prohibit and keep people from coming in. And so that will 100% keep a lot of the smugglers out of our country, which should reduce guns coming from the United States into Mexico. It will also see a big dramatic drop in the amount of illicit substances that come in here as well, that of course are taking the lives of tens of thousands of Americans every single year. So cartels will have to come up with another plan to run their country. And this problem in Mexico, you know, we've thrown billions of dollars at it. I say we stop throwing billions of dollars at it. Let Mexico deal with it. They just got a new president, so let them figure it out, right? There's no reason for us to continue to throw money at a problem that has only gotten worse. I mean, there's like 90,000 people that have disappeared since like 2006. 431,000 lives have been taken in that country since 2006. You're talking about 25 to 30,000 people a year. That's more lives that were taken than our worst year, this entire century, which was 2020. They average more than the worst year we ever had. And because of Trump's policies, hopefully we do see a decrease in all of this crime between Mexico and the United States. And the cartels can do whatever the heck they want, but getting these cartel members out of the United States, that's going to solve a big part of the problem. And that's something that Trump is talking about doing. So there you go. That's my opinion on it. And of course, I'd love to hear yours. What do you think about Mexico going after manufacturers in the United States? Do you think this is totally ridiculous? Do you think there's merit to it? However you feel about it, make sure you leave that down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold it down.